As we were running out and shut the door, my brother turned around and saw an older lady standing in the door, looking out at us.
So, once again, you have found yourself at the campsite of the Orator. Please pull up a chair. As you can see, the fire is stoked, which means I have another tale to tell. But before we begin, if you do find yourself enjoying this kind of content, first-hand accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, do me a favor, like this video, and then subscribe to my channel. Not only will you get notifications of every time I put out a new video, but it also helps me to grow my channel and continue to do what I love, which is tell terrifying, scary stories. Also, I do love interacting with my audience, so please leave a comment below. Maybe your favorite part of the video, types of videos you'd like to see in the future, if you maybe have a question for me, or if you have a personal paranormal encounter that you would like me to tell on my channel, please reach out either here in the comment sections or any of my social media. I would love to hear from you. Finally, we have extended the June contest all the way through to the end of July. Please stay until the end of the video and you will get all the details on exactly what that contest is. But there is a really cool giveaway that you are in the running for, so please stick around until the end. But now on to today's tale. Now in the very beginning, this is going to seem like a very straightforward ghost story, but you need to stay until the very end because there is a wild twist that I did not see coming when I heard this story. It is a tale that I am calling Drug Bust. So our story begins in the early 2000s. Tawny is in middle school. She's about 13 years old, and her mom and stepdad are moving from one house into another house. However, there was a weird transition period where their one house they had to leave. The second house they were moving into was not quite ready, and so there was a house that they had to live in for a couple of months while they made that transition. Now this house is on King Road in Holland, Ohio. So they move in and immediately everybody in the house, who is Tawny, her mom, her stepdad, and her brother, they all get kind of a bad vibe about the house. It feels very dark and kind of ominous. But they're only there for a couple months, and so nobody cares too much about this feeling. So it wasn't a huge house, but it did have two stories. The bottom story was all of the living areas, the kitchen, there was a bathroom, there was a living room, laundry room, pantry, things like that. And then if you went upstairs, there was an additional bathroom, and then there were a couple bedrooms housed upstairs. And like I said, right away, there was a dark and ominous feeling, but they were only there for 2 months, and things very quickly escalated. One thing that everybody noticed right away was that if you were standing at the sink in the kitchen and looking out, you could look out over the yard, and there was just a bunch of open yard out there, grass and stuff like that. There weren't really any trees. And then there was the street, and then actually beyond the street was a police station right across the street from them. And they always, every single family member remembers always feeling like when they were standing there at that window, someone was looking in at them. So anytime any of them were standing there doing dishes or maybe preparing a meal and looking out that window, they always felt like somebody was there staring in, and not like across the street, but like literally in their yard looking in at them. And every single person experienced it. And so pretty much everybody pretty immediately tried to avoid that particular window and looking out at it all. They had the curtains drawn as often as possible, but even so, every time they went there, they had kind of an eerie feeling. But it wasn't just eerie feelings. There were physical things that were happening in this house that nobody could explain. One of the strangest components was the phone. So this was back before cell phones were really popular. They had an actual landline phone, and all of the time, really, really late at night, midnight to 3 a.m., somewhere around there, they would get phone calls to their house. Now, these weren't calls that would ring and ring and ring. They would actually only ring once and then stop, but they would do it in 3 bursts. So it would ring and hang up, ring and hang up, ring and hang up. And then shortly after, the police would show up at their house. Somehow, even though their phone was ringing, there were outbound calls going to 911. Now, this is when the entire family's asleep. Obviously, no one had placed a 911 call, but this is happening very, very frequently, almost every single night. 3 bursts of singular phone calls, and then the police show up receiving some sort of outbound call from that house to 911. And this happened very frequently, almost every single night over the entire 2 months that they lived there. Now, Tawny's bedroom, like all of the bedrooms in the house, was on the 2nd floor. And her bedroom actually faced towards the neighbor's house. Now, the neighboring house next to them was actually vacant. There was nobody living there. In fact, there had been nobody living there for a really long time, and the house had kind of gone to seed a little bit. The grass was really tall, and the building itself was kind of put out a little bit. But Tawny was noticing, and she alerted her brother, who also saw this, that most nights there was a light on upstairs, even though clearly nobody lived in this building. And so, being middle schoolers and always adventurous and curious, they decided they wanted to investigate this. So late at night, they prepare themselves. They dress in dark clothes. They're very excited. They have their flashlights, and they sneak out of their house late at night after their parents have gone to bed, and they go out into the street. They walk down the sidewalk, and very timidly, they enter the neighboring house. Now, again, completely empty. As soon as they open the door, they could tell there's a layer of dust on everything. Definitely not been used in a very long time. And so they're exploring the house, and it has basically the same layout as theirs. A bottom floor that has mostly family rooms and things like that, and then an upstairs with bedrooms. And so they do eventually make their way upstairs, and they're really mostly curious about the room with the light on. And so they do end up going to that room, and when they enter the room, the light is off, even though they had seen it on earlier that night. But while they're in that room, they hear a woman downstairs say in a very soft and sweet voice, "Where are they?" And so they, of course, freak out, and they run downstairs and run straight out the door. Now, the door, when they had gone in, they made sure to close it. Unfortunately, when they came back downstairs, the door was open. And so they run downstairs, they're flashing their flashlight everywhere. There's nobody in the house that they can see. They run outside, slam the door behind them, and then Tawny's brother actually turns and looks, and there's an old woman standing in the window looking out at them. And so, of course, they freak out. They run back home, and, they're obviously terrified. But again, nobody living in that house, no squatters or anything like that. There definitely was not an old woman in the house when they searched. She just happened to be there looking out at them after they had left. So they're very creeped out. And obviously there's probably something going on next door, but they have their own problems to worry about, because as soon as they're back in their house, they're having to deal with that creepy, ominous feeling every time they look out their kitchen window, these outbound calls to 911, even though it's their phone that is ringing, and then things escalate even further. So their front door to their house, very consistently, again, this happens almost every single night and a ton throughout the day too, there will be something that sounds like someone's kicking in the door, and then all of a sudden the door will explode open. Doesn't matter if it's locked or unlocked, doesn't matter. So they could literally have the door locked, and all of a sudden they'll hear it kick, 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 and boom, the front door will explode open. And there's nobody there. There's no explanation for it whatsoever. And in fact, there were a couple times where this would happen. The door would get kicked in, it would explode open, and then someone would go close it, lock it, turn around to leave, and it would happen again right behind them. And of course, they're right there, so they're looking out, they're looking around the yard, and there's nobody. There's no explanation for it whatsoever. And then things start to get personal with Tawny. In her bedroom, she can hear somebody running up the stairs, and then they come into her bedroom. Now, she remembers very specifically that they were wearing track pants or windbreaker pants, and so she literally could hear their legs moving as they're coming upstairs and entering her room by the sound of the pants. And so it would very frequently happen where the door would get kicked in, and then she would hear somebody running upstairs and running into her room. And again, There's nobody downstairs who kicked in the door, and there's nobody who entered her room. She's looking around, she's turning on the lights. There's nobody in her room, but she just heard them enter. And so she's getting really freaked out. The rest of the family is also very freaked out. But again, they're only there for a couple months, and so they're already getting ready to move. Now, this is where the story gets very interesting. One day, Tawny is at school, and she's talking to a close friend of hers. And they're having a conversation about the things that are happening in her house. And her friend happens to mention that her father is a DEA agent. Now, a DEA agent, they work for the Drug Enforcement Administration. They work in police stations around the country where they specifically focus on drugs. That is their entire goal, is to find people who deal drugs, sell drugs, and make a profit off of that, and they try to take them down. That is their entire goal. And she told Tawny that her dad actually did a drug bust on Tawny's current house, and they killed the man in that house. And so I want you to recall everything that we've heard. Outbound calls to 911. They were looking out the window and feeling someone staring back at them. Then the door gets kicked in, and the man runs upstairs before finally probably meeting his end. And so literally what that family was experiencing from the minute they came into that house until the minute they left was basically that man's life. How he was getting canvassed by the police finally building a case enough against him. Probably in drug houses, lots of outbound 911 calls anytime there's some sort of activity that the person doesn't like, right? There's a lot of rival gangs and things like that are issues. And then the police finally taking care of the situation. They bust into the house, the guy runs upstairs, and he's eventually gunned down. And so the entire time this family is there, they're literally re-experiencing what that person felt. Now, luckily, a couple months goes by, and they are finally able to move out of that house. They go into their new house. But even now, 15 years later, Tawny remembers being terrified, just waiting for that man to run upstairs and enter her room. So that's going to do it for today's story. If you enjoyed this kind of content, first-person accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, please like this video and then subscribe to my channel. You'll get notifications every time I put new content out, and it also helps me to grow my channel and continue to do what I love to do. Again, please stick around all the way till the end of the video. Right after this, there's going to be an announcement talking about our giveaway that we're doing in June and July. So the video is only going to talk about June, but it's also July. So please stick around for that. And until next time, please join me where you'll pull up a chair, the fire will be stoked, and I will have another tale to tell. Hey everybody, welcome to June 2023, and we are doing some incredible giveaways this month. We are actually partnering with an incredible company called Jack's Attic. I will put all of their social medias and links down below. Jack's Attic is a purveyor of horror pop weirdness. They have all sorts of incredible stuff if you go check it out on their store. Right now they've been really heavy into trading cards, unique trading cards that they make, but they're always doing really cool, exclusive new items. Follow them on social media. Jack's Attic is creating a custom Orator trading card that you can potentially win. Here is how you win. There are a couple different rules. So how do you win? Well, first you have to be subscribed to my channel before anything else. So make sure that you head over to the Orator on YouTube. Look me up. I will send a link below, and make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. Once you're subscribed, every single time you comment on one of my videos in the month of June, you're going to get an entry, okay? Now, this is one comment per video, but you're welcome to comment on every single video that I post in June. Every time you comment on a video, one per video, you're going to get entered. At the very end of the month, we are going to draw 20 names in total, and if your name is drawn, you win. It's that simple. So here is exactly how these trading cards are going to work. There are 20 in total. Every single one of these trading cards is going to be unique, okay? They're all going to have the custom Orator logo on the front, but here's what makes each card unique. Every single one of those cards is going to have been burned by the Orator's fire, which means every single card is unique based off of its individual burn marks. Now, some say that my fire provides protection, and others say it draws the spirits ever closer. I will let you, the winners, decide which is true.